Yo, what is up guys, Stelboy here, aka Blue Collar Sports TV. Hopefully you guys are doing well. If you're new here, smash that like, hit subscribe, all of that good stuff. So this video really is a quick take on British boxing and its current standing. Now, I've been saying for a little while, I believe that the British boxing bubble is about to burst. I would say British boxing was in its absolute best in recent years. Between 2013, let's say the Cole Froch George Groves 1 fight, until maybe 2019, when maybe Joshua lost to Andy Ruiz. I would say that was the golden period for British boxing. In that time period, there was a lot of big nights, a lot of big events, fights that really salivated the British boxing fans' taste buds, and it felt like boxing was on a upward trajectory at that point in time. However, the last sort of 3 or 4 years, I've been seeing a decline in British boxing, not just in terms of so-called pay-per-view stars and fighters who can really drive a sport onwards and upwards with real star potential, but also just in regards to the frequency of quality cards, also in regards to the frequency of quality prospects. I believe British boxing, the bubble is about to burst. As of right now, you look at the current landscape, you look at the big pay-per-view stars. Who else is really left right now? Tyson Fury, he's not exactly covering himself in glory, but there are big fights for him. Still a big name, no doubt. Anthony Joshua, dip in form, dip in popularity. Again, don't get me wrong, there's still big fights for him that will attract casual interest, like a Deontay Wilder fight, like a Tyson Fury fight. But I see Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua as being on their last legs in the heavyweight division, maybe 3 or 4 fights each, and then they're going to call it a day. Aside from those 2 current established pay-per-view fighters, there's really nobody else currently operating at that level who can draw that excitement. A guy like Chris Eubank Jr. who can maybe get involved in decent fights. He's just lost to Liam Smith, got a rematch coming up, that even if he wins that, I think his name value has severely diminished. And even if he were to beat a Liam Smith, I don't really see what the big fights are on the horizon. So yeah, outside of Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury, there's no real established stars in the UK. Dillian Whyte is dusted, he's in the mud right now due to what's going on, probably facing a long-term ban. And when you look at the level below, potential stars, guys who could potentially draw a crowd if they get to a certain level. Conor Benn is the obvious example. Despite what he's had going on, the reality is people will watch him fight, but is he sustainable long term? Is he good enough? I'm not convinced by that whatsoever. Even before all of this PED nonsense, I was very sceptical on Conor Benn and his actual skill set because he's not fought anybody. Yeah, he's got star potential, but is he good enough to maintain that? I'm not entirely sure. And outside of Conor Benn, maybe you've got up-and-comers like Adam Azim, who could be a star in the making if he proves to be that good. We don't know yet. Ultimately, he is really unproven. He's got a unique style, an exciting style, gift of the gab, etc. But he's got a long way to go. There's Ben Whittaker, same thing, flashy style, arrogant personality. But once again, is this guy going to be good enough? Still very early in his career. Outside of those 2, I don't really see where the shining lights are in British boxing. And I was thinking that this past weekend, with the 2 cards hosted by Matchroom and BT, Dennis McCann, who is one of Frank Warren's best prospects, got a gift against Baluta, so he's got a long way to go. And quite frankly, I see him as a guy who isn't going to cut it at world level. Yeah, he's a quirky guy, but I don't see him having the quality or toughness to really make it through. On the Matchroom card, you've got Gamal Yafai, who I think will be a good fighter. in the flyweight division. But again, good fighter, no doubt. Olympic gold medalist, but the guy's 30 years old at flyweight. He's not exactly going to be a big star. He could be a quality fighter, but again, is he going to be a big star? No. And yeah, I mean, and even when you look at prospects from a level of not necessarily superstardom, but just quality prospects who actually have real potential, I don't see many in the UK right now. I really don't. I was watching that Matchroom Next Gen card, and Solomon Dakers, however you say his name, sort of a heavyweight prospect, that guy couldn't knock out a good wank. He's going nowhere fast in my opinion. And yeah, even when I look at the British scene in general, we're not talking about guys who could become potential superstars, like pay-per-view stars, guys who can drive the sport further. I don't see any prospects in the UK, or very few, who I genuinely believe has real quality, like that guy's a banker to become a world champion. Do you see any of those guys right now in British boxing? I don't really see it personally. I'm not sure what that reason is. We do have a good amateur system. We've been doing well now for quite some time, basically since 2008, the Olympics in 2008. We've done well in the amateurs, there's no doubt. Is there a lack of quality coaching in the UK at the pro level to successfully transition these guys from the amateurs to the pros? Potentially. Maybe the amateur style of coaching isn't conducive of having ultra successful pros. Because if you look at the last batch of Olympians, 2016, how many of these guys have really gone on to have truly special careers? And by the way, 2016 is 7 years ago now. Boatsi's still not fought for a world title. Lawrence Okolie, well, listen man, the less said about him the better. Joe Cordina's doing okay right now, but it's been a slow burn. Where are the quality fighters coming up right now in the UK, in the pro ranks? Again, there's guys who are flashy, guys who, if they're good enough, could be big stars, like Adam Azim, like Ben Whittaker, but again, I wouldn't put my money on these guys definitely becoming world champions or elite level fighters, because there's a difference in that too. Listen, right time, right place, average fighters can pick up a trinket, can pick up a title, but again, I ask the question, how many of these up-and-coming prospects in the UK would you bank on becoming a truly elite world-class fighter? I don't really see anybody right now, and that bodes for a bad future as far as I'm concerned. I don't see where they're coming from. Once Fury and Joshua both retire, I see a lack of future stars in British boxing, and those guys do matter, of course, fighters who can really transcend the sport and push it further. It continues the cycle, introducing young kids to boxing, getting them involved, getting them interested. I don't see where that next guy is coming from. There's a couple of guys with potential, like Conor Benn, whether you like it or not, maybe Adam Azim, Ben Whittaker, but again, outside of those guys, I'm really struggling. And the jury is out on those guys. I'm not convinced by their skills, but they have the raw ingredients to be stars. I believe in the very near future, aka once Fury retires, we're going to have less of these big fight nights in the UK, less of the O2 Arena, etc., less of a Manchester Arena. I think we'll start to see British boxing go back to what it was maybe in the mid-2000s. There'll be the odd big fight here and there, but we're going to see a lot of fights, a lot of fight nights in smaller venues, smaller arenas. You see Frank Warren doing that more regularly now as well. Having, staging fights at Telford, Matchroom, staging fights in Birmingham and small arenas, etc. Frank's doing a lot of shows at York Hall now. There seems to be more of these types of shows now compared to 5 or 6 years ago. And I think that's really a glimpse into the future when it comes to British boxing. I think we may go through a quote-unquote dark age, so to speak. That's what I see around the corner. Unless, of course, the next crop of Olympians turn out to be something special, but I'm not convinced. And even if they have talent, I'm not convinced we have the coaching in the UK to take these guys to the next level. I mean, let's be real. We've seen the fall off in quality in the last 4 years or so. I think it really started when Matchroom first got the DAZN deal. Many of their fighters would fight on DAZN USA cards, which really depleted the UK cards. And really, to me, it's gone downhill since, and it's followed all promoters. Another thing I feel has contributed is the artificial push for female boxing. It dilutes cards, it drags cards out, it makes them super boring, shoehorning these fights on undercards of big fights, and even just regular fight nights as well, these fights being shoehorned in, when, let's be real, there really is no demand. There really is no demand. I speak to enough people, I watch boxing with enough people to know that no matter what a few clowns on YouTube say, nobody really cares in the grand scheme of things. In the grand scheme of things. There is the odd exception, but ultimately nobody really cares. And that's another thing that I think's really been dogging British boxing recently, is the apparent political agenda of shoehorning these types of fights in. To me, it's just really watered down fight nights. It's so artificial, it's so inorganic. Every time now I tune into DAZN or Sky in particular, it feels like they're trying to undergo some sort of social experiment. Every single card, do you know what I'm saying? It's blatantly apparent what is going on. And yeah, to me that's greatly watered down the product of British boxing. It really has. But I suspect there's going to be more of it in the future, especially as the male talent becomes less and less spectacular, less and less frequent. You're going to see more of these mundane cards with average male fighters spliced in with female fighters. You're going to see more of these cards. And yeah, to me there's way too many already. I think they should be separate entities, quite frankly. If you're into that, put it all on one card, all females on one card, cool. Let's see how popular it really is behind a paywall, like DAZN, like Sky. Of course, they're not going to do that because it's artificial, like I said, inorganic. But once again, it just ruins the product, in my opinion. That's one thing I appreciate about PBC cards. At least I don't have to put up with that nonsense, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, the future is not looking good. I think British boxing's in the mud right now, quite frankly. Our flag bearer, heavyweight champion Tyson Fury, is MIA, ducking his #1 challenger in Alexander Usyk, his fellow champion. And ultimately it's a trickle down from there. I see a severe lack of quality at world level. There's been various PR disasters for British boxing in the last few years. Conor Benn, for example, etc. And yeah, I see British boxing in a sad state, and I just sense that people are getting sick of it. I sense that the hot streak of boxing is over. You know, it was only a few years ago where every Tom, Dick and Harry wanted to be at a Matchroom show because it was the place to be. I don't really get the sense that's a thing anymore. Obviously, there's still going to be certain fights that generate big demand, but they're becoming less and less frequent. They really are. And yeah, the worrying thing for me is the lack of quality on the come-up. I don't see British boxing heading in a good direction. Hence now why the whole scene really is being taken over by YouTube fighters, exhibitions, gimmick fighters, you know, like Johnny Fisher. I don't know, man. British boxing to me seems like it's going through a going out of business auction. That's what it feels like to me. And yeah, I don't see the future as being that bright. I think there's a lack of quality on the come-up. I think there's a lack of quality coaching. I think many of these fighters are so stuck in their shells, boring, mundane, they can never be stars to drive the sport forwards. I feel the custodians of the sport in recent years have done a terrible job. Eddie Hearn, Frank Warren, Ben Shalom. Christ. Yeah, we're going through a dark age soon, boys. We're going through a dark age soon. Share your thoughts below. Beanie Guy Delboy. Peace.